Hey everybody, this is AJ Ali. I'm back for another episode of the Love is the Answer podcast. My guest today is Jim Massery. I'm going to bring him on in a second, but I'm going to read his bio and then we'll bring him on in. Jim is a resident of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, where he served on the city council from 1999 to 2001, attended the University of Massachusetts with a focus on theater, French, and Arabic. He's a 1981 graduate of the Stevens School of the Bible. Along with his wife, Natalie, of 35 years, he's the founder of the Father-Daughter Valentine Dance movement across the U.S. Jim is currently employed by Lenco Armored Vehicles of Pittsfield, Massachusetts. That's how Jim and I met at the 2019 International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference. And we'll talk about that a little bit. His hobby is Lebanese cooking, and he has a Facebook cooking page called Uncle to Moose, where he helps newcomers to Lebanese cuisine overcome their fears. He is an active member of St. Mark's Church, and he volunteers as a Meals on Wheels delivery man. Jimmy, how you doing, man?
Hey, Jay, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me on. You know, well, I'd like to start off by saying right here in the beginning that this is a very tough week for the African American community and all of America. Yeah. And to be on this TV podcast with you, the man who made the film Walking While Black, and knowing that I volunteered to bow out to allow experts in that field. Yeah. And hearing you say, no, Jimmy, I still want you. It was a very moving experience for me, although brief, but it just reminded me that we as a people, the American people, humanity, worldwide, no matter how badly things go, we must continue to move forward to make our world a better place. And no better example than you, AJ. You are that kind of man, and very proud to be your friend. And it was a blessing to me that day that we met. And I remember saying to myself, I think we talked for a half an hour. It seemed like 20 seconds. But you had a lot of good things to say. You taught me a lot. And, you know, we stop living when we stop learning. Every man, I don't care who it is. My dad was a kind of a lay evangelist within the church. And he taught me something really interesting that I held in my heart. He said, you know, it really doesn't matter what job or position you hold. I don't care if you're digging a ditch or sweeping floors. You do it the absolute best you can, because the better you do it, the better you're going to feel about yourself. And that is the only way to get promoted, is to do whatever job or task you've been assigned and to do it with all your might. And I never, ever forgot that. And it's not part of my bio, but in 1992, my dad had already passed away, and my brother and I were running the business that he left behind for us. And unfortunately, the business went under, and we did not succeed. And it was it was a very difficult time. And I was a salesperson for the company selling candy and groceries around the county. But all of our mom and pop stores were vanishing to the bigger chains and convenience stores. So we just ran out of customers. So not even 5 minutes after my job ended, I called a childhood friend of mine named George. And I said, George, I need a job. And George owned a car dealership in town.
Okay.
And within 5 minutes, I talked him into hiring me as his car salesman. And I said, George, I said, I promise you, I'm going to be your number one salesman in less than a year. Well, I lied to him. It was less than 6 months. I was the number one guy at the top of the board. But it wasn't because I knew a lot about cars. It's because I had a passion for whatever it was that God gave me to do. And I remember being at a party, and there was a young dentist there who found out I was selling cars. And I know he was just ribbing me. But he said, "You're a car salesman now? I hate you." And it wasn't a good joke for me. It might have been a good joke for him, but it wasn't a good joke for me. It hit me at a bad time because I was sad and I was pulling myself up from my bootstraps. And I'll bet not even a week or two later, I sold a car to a gentleman named Len Light, the owner of Lenco Armored Vehicles. And he and his wife came in, and it turned out his wife's brother was assistant pastor at St. Mark's Church. And before you know it, a couple of years went by and they said, "You know what? We really like you. We want you to sell armored cars." So had I not taken that job, the only job that I could figure out that I needed immediately to provide for my family, that I could get immediately, I wouldn't be a sales rep for Lenco Armored Vehicles. And we're proud to say we've sold our Bearcat to 100% of the top 100 urban areas in the United States.
Okay.
So God saw a man that was willing to take what was given to him and enthusiastically keep moving forward. And that's what you're doing. You took tragedy within the African American community and you said, "It is not going to hold me back. What can I do? What movie can I make? What people can I talk to? What organizations like L.O.V.E can I start? And take this, what seems like failure, and move forward with God's grace and faith in yourself, in Him, and in humanity to make the world a better place." And that's what I admire a lot about you.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that, Jimmy. You know, it's only been days. You know, that we're taping this just days after George Floyd died at the hands of police in Minnesota, and this has been an incredibly difficult week for so many of us around the country. The Black community especially, but Black, white, everyone has been affected deeply by this. I'm hearing from people who are hurting in ways that I've never heard them speak. And, you know, old friends or business associates who are calling me just to vent and, you know, releasing a lot of tears, you know, about this. I want to honor his life, George Floyd. I want to honor his life by pressing forward with the work that we have to do to make things better. I certainly, I'm sad, and I'm angry about it. I'm very sad about it. But I know that we have to find a way to move forward, right? And continue to do the important work that has to be done. As we speak, Jimmy, there are people who are protesting, and unfortunately there have been injuries, and you know, there have been buildings burned down, and some very unfortunate things have been happening. But I also know that at the same time, there are a lot of people around the country that are having conversations that they never had before, conversations that are healing and getting to the truth about the destruction that racism causes in America, and all the things that, you know, we should be celebrating, all those things that are differences that we should celebrate about each other. We let walls come in between us and these barriers get put up, and that's, you know, when we first met at the IACP, I had been talking with hundreds of people during that conference, and I saw, a guy standing next to a bear cat, and I got to tell you, my initial thought was, I'm just going to be wasting my time going to talk to him because, he's selling this heavy equipment that police are using in these, really bad situations, and he's probably not going to care at all about the kind of work that I'm doing. And, we all have these biases, right? And so that was something that popped into my head before I came and talked to you. And I had to push that out of my mind and cross over that aisle and talk with you. And I had made up my mind that no matter what kind of response I was going to get from you, that I was going to try my hardest to try to make a connection. And I was actually surprised when I didn't have to work very hard, because you were such a great guy, and we just kind of hit it off.
You're touching my heart. One of the things that happened with the development of this product from the very beginning was that we committed it to the municipal government, the cities, the towns, the counties, the states. We weren't building a military vehicle. We were building a vehicle with military-grade armor, but that could deliver a crisis negotiator and paramedics to a man or woman having their worst day, and get them within a couple feet of them to try to talk them out of ending their lives or ending the lives of someone else, or trying to cause suicide by a cop. There's a reason why Superman never killed anybody in any of his movies or TV shows, because he didn't fear for his life. And we've been proud to say, when we put our customers in Bearcats, they don't fear for their lives. Granted, they may flinch if a bullet ricochets off the windshield, and that's human.
Sure.
But I have had people come to the factory, police officers and deputies and state troopers come to our building and look me in the eye and say, your product saved my life. And that bullet would have hit me right between the eyes. And the bad guy is still alive. And if it weren't for your vehicle, that bad guy would be dead. I'd be dead. And who knows how many other of my teammates would be gone. So I have a tremendous boss, the founder and CEO of Lenco, Len Light, who is, in my mind, one of the smartest people I've ever met, and a tremendous leader. And when the idea, soon after I was hired, the idea and the discussion came up to build a purpose-built SWAT truck. And I saw the light bulb over his head lit. He was building bank trucks at the time for the cash and transit industry. And that industry was rather unappreciative of any new technology. It didn't mean a lot to them if Len had developed a new concept. So he was underappreciated, but he had the talent and he had the entrepreneurial spirit to move his company forward. And within a couple of years, we had said goodbye forever to that industry. And now our brand does very well within law enforcement, at the FBI, the DEA, the DHS. They're all using our products and staying safer and approaching, as I said, approaching people who are having a bad day with the ability to intervene in a way that gives them a second chance.
I think that's so important to look at, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. As I mentioned to you when we were talking earlier before this call, I would have had you on had you been a shoe salesman just because of the person that you are. It's not about the company and the work that you do, but I think it's really important that we give a glimpse to different aspects of the law enforcement industry, and including that heavy equipment that is kind of scary when you see it rolling down the street in your community. But there are aspects of it that are saving lives. It's a vehicle that is helping to save lives, and that's not just to save lives of police, but also people out there in the community, as you mentioned, that are having a bad day one way or another. And this,
right.
It's noble work that you guys are doing. But I want to get, I want to dig down into the hard issues. Some of these issues of the heart, and of course, this is a Love is the Answer podcast. So I always like to share what that acronym means with people. Of course, you know it, but someone watching may not. That word love is learn about the people in your community, open your heart to their needs, volunteer yourself to be part of the solution in their life, and empower others to do the same. And I before we go further, I want to, along those lines, I want to hold something up, and I don't know if you can see it, but this is a challenge coin, and it's given to me by the LA County Sheriff's Department, and they have a youth activities league that they do. So it's kind of like the PAL, groups that are out there, and I wanted to give them a shout out. I try to give a shout out to somebody that's giving me a challenge coin every episode, and they're the kind of organization that's doing some really incredible work day in, day
out. Doubt.
Helping young people. And I know that because I've talked with some folks about your products. It actually has become, in some instances, a recruiting tool. And it's also become a touch point where young people will come up to the vehicle and talk with the officers, and you just kind of open up a line of communication because it's just so awesome looking. I remember telling you that I wanted to get one for myself, but you told me I wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, maybe if you can get the LA Sheriff's Department to let you join the department,
yeah, right?
Then maybe we can get you one.
There we go. There's always a loophole. But yeah, Juan Martinez is one of the guys that's there with the youth programs there, and they're doing a really great job. And your work has got to be satisfying. What's the most satisfying thing that you do?
Well, no doubt, the friendships, the people that I have met have enriched my life in ways that I never thought were possible. And young SWAT operators that were in their mid-20s, early 30s, who I met, in the early 2000s, are now under sheriffs or deputy chiefs or chiefs. And, the friendships have stayed. These are fellas and ladies too, who have proven themselves amongst their peers with the quality of their work, their camaraderie, their leadership skills, their ability to problem solve. I'm tremendously blessed with friends who have started organizations like the Ohio Tactical Organization, New York Tactical, Georgia Tactical. These are people who want to, the National Tactical Officers Association. So many of my close friends that I've grown up through the years are now regional directors and helping police departments and their SWAT members train and learn how to operate in a professional manner. These are all my peers. These are all fellas and ladies that I whose beer I cried in, trying to figure out a way to get them to buy a Lenco bear or a Bearcat, and now in some cases they bought one or two or three, and now they've ascended through the ranks, and they've served as chief or undersheriff or deputy chief or lieutenant or captain. And now some of them are retiring and taking these leadership roles within law enforcement, within ICP as well, which you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And these are people that I keep in touch with on a regular basis. These are my closest friends. And
now these are people that you don't just work with, but you break bread with them, and you do life with these folks, right?
Right. These are people who started off as customers and they ended up as best friends, and it's a blessing to be able to befriend your customer, because one of the most successful things any salesperson can do is to allow himself to be liked. Because if you walk into a store or a car dealership or any type of event where you're going to walk into or a store where you're going to transact business, if you don't like the person that's waiting on you, the chances of you making a purchase are pretty slim. Pretty slim.
Yeah. Boy, when you said that, I immediately began to think about the police community relationship and the transactions that we have on a day-to-day basis with the police, and how on both sides of that equation there are human beings with dreams and hopes and families and hobbies, likes and dislikes, and the more we can break through those initial barriers, the more we can reward ourselves with a more fulfilling life. Like I can't wait to dive into your cooking and the father-daughter Valentine dance, because when I first saw you, those were not the things that I was thinking about.
Right.
So
no, nobody would know.
Right. So tell me, you got a cooking program on Facebook, right?
So about 2 years ago, maybe a year ago now, not quite 2 years, but my youngest son Mark, he's an assistant editor at a nonprofit organization called the Marion's Shrine of Divine Mercy. He's a Christian writer, but of course he doesn't make a ton of money. And he says, Dad, how can we make more money? What can we do to make money? Can we start a business? Can you start making your hummus? Everybody loves your hummus. I said, well, listen, son. I said, I know my hummus is awesome because I learned from one of the greatest cooks in the world, my mother. And I said, but there's a problem with it. It's a perishable item, and I don't want to be chasing around products that expire. And in the world today, you have to take it back and give a full credit. I said, we'll go broke trying to do that, competing in the world. I said, I want to invent something that doesn't go bad, like my spices. So, when you're a Lebanese cook, you make tabbouleh, which is a tremendous parsley and tomato and bulgur wheat salad.
Yes,
it's
delicious.
The combination of spices that I was taught by my mother and my aunt Samia, who's also my godmother, I would put up I don't even want to call it my recipe. I would put their recipe for tabbouleh against anybody's. And once you taste it, all you want to do is eat it again. So I would have, before I started selling it, I would have a jar of spices with all the 5 different combination of spices in one jar, and I would write with a magic marker tabbouleh. And then I would do the same thing for L.O.V.E. L.O.V.E is our green beans and tomato paste, tomato sauce, which is delicious. So I would have my L.O.V.E spice. I'd have my tabbouleh spice. I would have my kibbe spice. I would have my mjaddada spice. All the different famous and well-known and beloved Lebanese recipes, I'd have spice jars. Finally, as I was explaining it to him, it just dawned on me, well, why don't I just try to do that? So I did that. I came up with, this is one of them. This is the tabbouleh spice. And
all right, hold it a little closer. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just a very easy way to to learn how to cook Lebanese food. And I don't even have a website. You just send me a message. You go to Uncle Tamoose on Facebook.
All right.
And it's TAMOOSE. Go to Uncle Tamoose on Facebook, like the page, and you'll get videos now and again and recipes. And
nice.
Just send me a message, and I'll tell you how you can get a hold of it. I got 2 sizes, and there's 4 other varieties. There's fatouche spice, there's a cooking spice, there's kibbe spice, and there's what I call breakfast time za'atar. I don't know if you've ever had that, but it's a delicious thyme and sesame and sumac blend.
And, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's a great way to eat the Mediterranean diet and be excited about it. It's more than just salt and pepper. It's just a little bit.
Well, we try to stick with a Mediterranean diet as much as possible. I lived in Sicily for a couple of years, and learned a lot about food while I was there, and became just a super fan of olive oil.
Oh yeah. Olive oil cooking is the best.
Yep. One of the things we try to do is encourage people to sit down and break bread. And whether it's just a coffee at a Starbucks or actually somebody inviting someone over to their home for dinner. Not that that's being done right now, but hopefully we'll be able to get back to that kind of thing soon. But just to have a meal with someone and just spend some time getting to know each other over that meal is so important. We promote that a lot within the work that we do.
It's smart. That you're smart, AJ, because no matter what you feel as though you are opposed to someone over, when it comes time to eat, we're all on the same page.
Right.
Like music, You could have 2 polar opposites totally in love with an entertainer like Little Richard, God rest his soul, or Stevie Wonder, or Elton John. It doesn't matter. And God gave us our senses, I think, because we don't have enough common sense. So he gave us supernatural senses, whether it be the sense of hearing, the sense of taste.
Yeah.
And those are things that work without us having to control them. And
so let's talk about the when with the music comes dancing, and so you started something back in 1992, right?
Yes, sir. So
yeah,
I had my daughter, who I still have and cherish today. She was about 4 years old. And I used to, take a break for lunch and listen to Dr. Dobson, James Dobson, who was a family professional pastor and evangelist and teacher. And he had a guest on the TV show, on his radio show that day. I don't recall his name, but he was talking about father-daughter relationships. And he mentioned that to Dr. Dobson, that if a father doesn't have a solid relationship with his daughter, then she's going to grow up with a hole in her heart, and she may gravitate toward an older man too early, or a more authoritative man than is necessarily good for her. And she may end up getting into a relationship where she doesn't understand, how a gentleman is supposed to behave, because the gentleman in her life, the father, didn't give her the time that she needed. And, you can say boys and girls are the same, but if you've had a boy and a girl, if you've been blessed with one or the other, you know how different they are. And I remember feeling convicted as I heard that. And I just, when the radio program ended, I just said a prayer, and I said, Lord, give me an idea to help me have a better relationship with my daughter and let it be something I can share with other fathers. And it was like a pulsation of information or idea that hit my head, almost like I was convinced that it was a gift, a divine gift from God. And he had just said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to have a father-daughter dance. And I said, what's the theme, Lord? He said, it's going to be Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. Well, it was late December, early January. It was right around the corner. And I was like, man, I don't have a lot of time for this. So I just started kicking the idea around in my head and started dancing with my daughter, Marissa, in the living room. And I started telling her, I'm taking you to a father-daughter dance. And I'm spinning around with her. We're playing music. And she was a great dancer. And of course, when your daughter dances and she's a little girl, they got you right here, right? You know that. They got you in the palm of their hand. And my wife looks at me and she says, why are you telling her that? There's no father-daughter dance. I said, yes, there is, and you're going to help me. And my wife's reaction was, well, that's a lot of work. As soon as she said that's a lot of work, I knew it was doable, because she didn't say it can't be done. She just said that's a lot of work. Well, push come to shove, and we organized our first dance at our church, and we thought we were going to have there was actually a snowstorm on that day. It was in February, and we had sold about 150 tickets, and we were real optimistic. And the night before the event, I had called the local newspaper, our Berkshire mm-hmm. Eagle, and I said, we got something really special going on here at St. Mark's School tomorrow night, which was the annex of the church. Would you consider coming by and taking a picture? Oh no, Mr. Massery, it's a Friday night here. We got hockey games, we got high school basketball. There's only one photographer. There's not a chance we're going to be able to cover this story of yours. But thanks for thinking of us, and good luck. So I just hung up and I said, oh, so be it. There's not much I can do about it. They got a good point, It's, they got high school basketball, that's important. Hockey, high school hockey, that's important.
Yeah.
So the next day, the forecast is snow. So by noontime, it starts to snow, and I'm on the road, and I got an old bag phone in my car, and my wife's decorating with her friends at the school. So finally, when I was done with my sales route, I called her and I said, how's it going? And I could hear panic in her voice. What are we going to do? It's snowing. What are we going to do? The church secretary's calling, the pastor's calling. Would you please call them? Okay, so I call the church. I call the rector. I get the secretary on the phone. Oh, I'm so glad you called. Everybody's calling. Everybody's calling. Are you going to cancel? I said, who's everybody? Is it the fathers or the mothers? She says, oh, it's all the mothers. All the mothers are calling. I said, how many fathers call? She said, not one. I said, we're having it. I said, I said, the only reason that they're calling is because women hate to drive in the snow and men love to drive in the snow. We don't care. We thrive. We're having it. So sure enough, she thought it was crazy, but sure enough, we had it. And by the end of the night, I'll bet there were 300 people through the door, fathers and daughters. It's a tremendous event. Everybody had a blast. People were just shaking their heads saying, I can't believe how much fun this was. And again, it was not a fundraiser. It was a ministry. Two dads to be able to take their little girls out on a date and say to them, you're the most important person to me tonight. Here's a flower, or I'm going to put on my suit coat. I'm going to put on a tie. We're going to go. We're going to do one thing. We're just going to dance. And we're going to have a good time. And all your little friends are going to be there, because we didn't limit the ages. It was from infants all the way up to high school. There was no limit. And there was a beautiful camaraderie, a beautiful sisterhood that played out between the older girls and the younger girls. Far greater than I thought. But they were very, very community oriented. I mean, the older girls didn't have a problem with dancing with the little girls. They thought it was great. Whereas you might not see that with young boys. You might not see a 10th grade boy hanging out with a first grade boy. Just might not happen. Because they got more arms on that. So by the end of the night, I'd say, we had such a great time. And about maybe half an hour into the event, I feel a tap on my shoulder. Are you Mr. Massery? Yeah, who are you? Well, I'm the photographer from the Berkshire Eagle. All the games got snowed out. There's no hockey games, no basketball games. We have nothing else to cover but this event. So sure enough, we ended up on the front page of the newspaper the next day. And, every single thing we dreamed about came true. And the following year, that was double the population of people in attendance. Year after that, it got even bigger. Year after that, it got so big, we were turning people away. And that hall could hold 1,000 people. But we were turning people away, and it was just too upsetting. So I wrote a guidebook, father-daughter dance guidebook. And Dr. Dobson actually helped me promote it. There was an article that appeared in one of his publications. And, back then the internet wasn't really a thing like it is now. So what would happen is I actually had to set up a separate phone number to receive. There was so many phone calls coming in that they would leave me a voicemail, and they would leave me their mailing address, and I would just send them the guidebook. It was $5 at the time.
Okay. And
by the end of our run with the promoting the father-daughter Valentine Dance guidebook, I was just emailing it out for free. It really wasn't about making money. It was just about covering our expenses and, getting the message out there that if a dad spends time with his daughter, even if it's just, and I hate to say it, but even if it's just that one night a year, he's giving her his undivided attention.
Yeah.
And Lord willing, he's going to want to do that more often, and not just that one night a year, but maybe once a month or once a week or a couple times a year, when he just says, come on, let's just you and I go out to be together. And,
I would imagine you've had a lot of people, fathers, come to you and tell you that it's made a tremendous difference in their relationship, not only with their daughter, but within the whole family structure.
Yes, there's no doubt about it. Too many to count. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of letters. I saved them all, of people just saying this is such a tremendous event for our community. And it doesn't have to be at a church. It can be anywhere. In fact, it got to the point where it got so big that it went from just being church functions to seeping into the public schools. So now the majority of the public schools now, at the younger grades, they do a father-daughter dance, and it's inspired mother-son dances, which are a completely different dynamic, but still important to a lot of these sons and mothers, especially single moms, to give them a night out with their son.
Yeah.
But most of all, the biggest blessing of all was, and it would seem like it was the saddest thing of all, but it was not. It was the daughters of dads who wouldn't participate, or who couldn't be found, or who weren't in the family in any way. It was those daughters who got invited by daughters like my daughter. And no girl in any school where it was being held was left behind. And to see and hear about stories of young ladies saying, Daddy, Stacy has no dad. Can she come with us to the father-daughter dance? And man, your knees just turn to wax. You just can't believe what you're hearing. That your little girl, who doesn't really have a big understanding of how the world works, has a heart big enough to understand what hurt looks like and what pain looks like. And one of the things that happened, in Massachusetts can be a pretty political place. There was a town nearby that had a father-daughter Valentine dance as a spin-off of ours. And the following year, the committee, the PTA, I guess it was in a school, they canceled it. And the woman who had organized it the year before called me up in tears, and she said, I just don't understand why they canceled it. I said, what was their reason? She said, because there are little girls in the school that don't have dads, and we don't want to make them feel bad.
Mm.
I said, let me tell you something. Let me tell you where they got it wrong. That one night a year that little girl with no dad goes to the father-daughter dance, they just took it away. So one night a year, she feels whole. One night a year, she feels like she's part of a normal family with a dad who cares about her. And I'm not saying it has to be the mom and the dad in the same house, but a male figure who cares about her, who would die for her. That one night a year where that little girl can go with her best friend and her dad, they took it away. And they said, no, you can't have that. And I mentioned a young lady named Stacy. She's an adult now, so I can use her name, her first name anyways. And she lived next door to us. And she was a couple of years older than Marissa, but she wanted to go to the dance, and there wasn't a dad available to take her. Mm-hmm. And my little girl said, Daddy, can Stacy come with us? Absolutely. She sure can, Marissa. Love to have her. She came every year, and I lost track of how many years she came. I don't know. But she was very shy. I don't think she ever danced with me more than 15 seconds at any dance. Maybe 10 seconds, and she would just giggle and run away. She was painfully shy. But it didn't matter to me because she had a beautiful spirit, a beautiful heart. She loved my daughter, and she loved my other kids. So fast forward about maybe 7 or 8 years, and she's a young woman, mid-20s maybe, and we get a phone call from her fiance. He says, I'm having a surprise birthday party for Stacy. Here's the address. I would love it if you came. I said, does she know we're coming? Oh, no, it's a surprise. She has no idea. So we go to the address, and we're all in this, little, pretty good sized living room, but not huge. We're all kind of like standing around in a circle. And I really didn't know anybody else in there other than her fiance, who I had only met once. And of course I knew her mother. Mm-hmm. But all of her other friends, I didn't know. These were her friends from adulthood. So we're just standing there waiting to yell surprise, for her birthday. Finally, she walks in the door, and I'm as far away from her as you can be. I'm on the other end against the wall, and there's at least 20 people in the room. She walks in the room. She looks straight at me. You're here? And she makes a beeline to me and wraps her arms around me and hugs me until I almost cannot breathe.
Wow.
And I'm just blown away. And I'm saying to myself, Lord, you were right. You were right when you said to me that one night a year was the night she felt whole. That one night a year when a man that was an equivalent of her dad cherished her enough to make her the focus of his night and put her on a pedestal and take her out and be a date and have a dance and have no pressure of any kind. No physical pressure, no pressure to drink, no pressure to do drugs, no pressure to put out anything of any kind other than just smile and a happy dance on the dance floor.
That's so important for them to get that baseline, if you will, of what that experience should be like.
Yes. Well, think of it this way. If you don't do it as a dad, who's going to do it? That first date. That first date's going to do it. He's going to say, yeah, this is what we do.
Right. Jimmy, do you have you ever had any I don't know if you've kept that separate from the work that you've done within the law enforcement community? But have you had any members of the law enforcement community participate in any of these events?
Well, I would say more than likely yes, but it's not a part of when I present myself as a sales rep for Lenco, I don't ever talk about this.
I bet you're going to have some, I know you're not running it anymore because you passed the reins on, but I bet there's going to be some people interested in doing it now.
I hope so. I hope so. And all they need to do is reach out to you or reach out to me, and I'll email them the guidebook so they can have it. There won't be any charge for that.
That would be awesome. I'm just, I'm picturing, some of these young ladies that don't have a father or father figure around,
right.
And what an impact it would make for someone from the sheriff's department or police department to step up and be that person.
Yes, it actually was. It was one city, and it escapes me right now, but there was one city that did that. There was an urban area. There was a lot of fatherless girls.
Okay.
So many that they incorporated the deputies and the police. And the way it works is the mom actually does the driving. The mom goes and picks up the deputy or the sheriff at his house.
Okay.
Drives him to the dance and then drives him home, because that way there's less exposure for the officer, and less risk of anybody making a false claim against him.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's awesome. I really love that the story, the work that you started, and that people are still doing that and making a difference in the lives of these young ladies.
Yeah, and I'd like to give a shout out to the one particular couple. There's a couple in Valdosta, Georgia, that have been doing it since they were probably one of the first people that bought the guidebook. And I always tell them I didn't charge him enough because he's been doing it for 22 years, 23 years.
Wow.
Jeff and Becky Stewart, they've been running their father-daughter dance, and it's so big they have to run 2 dances a night for 2 nights in a row. And it's a ministry just like ours. It's not ours was not a fundraiser. It is just an outreach to the community to say, hey, dads, hey, daughters, here's a good time for you to make a memory. And I mean, you see dads showing up with sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 daughters, and they're all dressed the same in beautiful gowns, and they look tremendous. And if you ever get an opportunity to go to one, I know his is still, doing really well and helping a lot of people in that area in Georgia.
Beautiful. I'm definitely going to be on the lookout, and I encourage anyone who's looking at this, especially someone who's in the law enforcement community, to get involved in some way in something in their community, and reach out to you and get that guidebook and see if they can make a difference in someone's life. We have in our book, the Love is the Answer book, how you can put principles of love into action to build a stronger police community marriage. We have all these examples of things people can do on a daily basis to make that difference. And the one thing that I don't think we have in there is that, that kind of a dance. We've got mentoring and we've got building gardens together and refurbishing community centers together and all these kinds of things. But that'll have to be in the second edition. We'll have to go from 25 to 26. And
that's an honor. Thank you.
Mention the great work that you've done in there as well. Jimmy, I want to wrap up with a word association game that I like to do to end these things, man. So I call the word association game I love, and I'll say something, and you just finish it up with with whatever comes to mind.
Okay.
Sound good?
I'm game.
All right. Favorite dish to cook? I love
tabbouleh.
Why did I know you were going to say that?
I really do. I really do.
It's a great dish, and I can't wait one day to have some of yours. And I got to buy some of those spices too, man. So
thank you.
Email me what I need to do to get some, and I'll
Very
do
good.
that.
We'll do that.
Awesome. Second word. I'm gonna do 3 words. Second word, dance.
With your daughter.
Awesome. So last word, love. What comes to mind?
Love everybody. Everybody. Because we're all the same. We're all made in the likeness and image of God, and we're all flawed. We're all needy. We're all empty until people start filling us up around us. And God didn't create us to be alone. He created us to be with others and to socialize and to be filled up by friendships, love, compassion, to be around people like you, AJ, who care about his people, who care about the African American community that like no other man cares. And it's not the guy who's the most angry that's going to solve the problem. It's the guy with the best plan. That's how we're going to get through this. Anger is an emotion that doesn't always get us what we need. Sometimes it takes away what we need. It can be controlled. You can allow anger to contribute. If you control it, you can allow it to contribute to your success. Kind of like Tom Brady. He was picked in the 6th round. So he controlled that anger that he was passed over by every team in the NFL 6 times, and even his own team 5.
He's been making everybody pay for it ever since.
That's right. But you don't see that anger because he's got it under control. You're a man who has passion for your community. You have more passion for your community than I have for my community with my spices. I know that. I know you do. And you're making a difference. And you're a man I'm proud to call my friend. And I just thank you for this opportunity to be on this show.
Brother, I'm thankful for you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Like I said, I want to purchase some of those spices, put them to work, and hopefully soon, when we're able to share a meal again with our friends, in a safe environment, I'll be sprinkling some of that stuff in some of my law enforcement friends and my neighbors in the community as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you'll be helping them eat healthy as well. Which is
there we go. Oh man, that's a whole nother thing. We could talk for another hour about health and wellness, especially in the Black community, in the law enforcement community. There's something in common in those 2 communities, which is we are not taking good care of ourselves.
Right.
And that's something that I'm hoping with our gardens, and this is something else, Jimmy, when we're starting to inspire the creation of Love is the Answer children's learning gardens. So we're actually getting police and community members to come together to identify pieces of land and build these community gardens together. And when they grow these herbs and spices and vegetables and fruits and other things, we're gonna have to make sure they're sprinkling some of your spices on some of this stuff too.
That would be great.
Yeah, but it's all about getting people to build relationships and learn about things they can do to improve their health and wellness.
Right.
You know, and if we can get the law enforcement community and the Black community together to do that, not only will I think we will see a reduction in some of the mental stressors that we're all going through, but an improvement in the physical health as well.
Right.
And I think with those things, we're gonna see better relationships overall, you know, between these communities, and make them what they should be, which is one community, just common unity, the community.
Right.
So, Jimmy, man, thank you again, brother. I appreciate everything that you do. I appreciate the man that you are.
Thank you, AJ. You hang in there, brother. I know it's a tough week. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Aloha.
Love you.
Peace.
All right.